foolish mortals.
Hello there. Are you insane? Get out of here!
Remain seated with your seatbelt fastened.
Right, off you go.
Welcome to Average Joe Orlando. Hello, theme park goers. Welcome to our theme park monthly recap for December 2024. However, this time we're going to do it a little different. Instead of doing a monthly recap, we're going to do it as the full year recap. So let's talk about some of the big things that happened in the theme park world around the world this year. Typically, for those who don't know, I like to set up this podcast to do something different every week. Usually starting with a list where I'll rank things, go through things. We'll do a review and advice on an event or a park or something. Deep dive, going into maybe a background of a different thing going on or a park or maybe like extinct attractions. And then always round out the month with a theme park monthly recap, where I usually just talk about the news going on in that park. It's been pretty easy for me. It hasn't been really a slow month since I started this podcast earlier this year, just because there has been so much going on with D23, the Disney fan event with all the things going on and the announcements. That was a big one. Then we had the holidays, so Halloween and then Christmas. And then for December, I'm like, well, nothing really big happened. Oh, the whole year. So I started looking into it and I was like, I don't think there was much going on this year in the theme park world. Nope, turns out I was wrong. I think I'm so disillusioned just because here in Orlando, everything is get ready for Epic next year, get ready for Epic next year. Nothing's really happening this year. But when you look at it, actually a good amount did happen this year for theme parks. As I mentioned, nothing major, nothing that was like, oh my gosh, the best thing ever. But really, when you look about timelines for theme parks, everything kind of goes in waves, and there are some pretty good ones. I also got to travel to a lot of theme parks this year. I think this has been my biggest travel year to date. It was one of the New Year's resolutions I had for this year of different things. And I think every year it's good to start New Year's resolutions knowing that some of them will stick, some of them won't. But one of my things was I wanted to try traveling more and not wait. I think if we learned anything from the year with COVID or 2 years that we really lost is don't wait, don't push things off, go for it. So something I really got to do this year, which I was excited for, was a bucket list of going over to Japan was my number one thing on my list. And going there, I got to see a bunch of different theme parks, Tokyo Disney Resort, so the 2 parks out there, as well as going down to Osaka to Universal Studios Japan. So definitely going to talk about those on my list. Going to talk a little bit about Disneyland Paris. Got to go there in August, and then also got to last year go to the Efteling in the Netherlands. And then do some more cruises too. I definitely love cruises, so definitely got to do 2 more this year, try some more off my list. And then, of course, being an Orlando local, getting to pop into the theme parks whenever I want, as well as experiencing all the different events. So having annual passes everywhere, getting to try everything here. So definitely, it's funny when you go to another country and you're like, oh, I want to be immersed in the culture, but really, I want to do the theme parks. We all have our things, right? But let's start at the top with Tokyo Disney. The biggest thing that opened there was Fantasy Springs, and I will say I went in April to Tokyo, and this did not open until June, so I did miss it. However, it's kind of okay that I missed it because it looked like it was packed and letting it die down. They started doing some previews and such when I was there. They opened up the Fantasy Springs Hotel, and then they also opened up 4 attractions within this land. Now, going out to Tokyo Disney, I knew that they spent a lot more money out there in the parks than Florida did, or any of the other parks really, but I didn't realize how much. The whole land alone was a $2 billion, with the B, $billion renovation and upgrade. The footprint of the park is massive, and the detail is insane. So when you think, oh, Disney has just put in Star Wars Land, it's not even close to what they have done with Fantasy Springs. I'm sure everything online hasn't done it justice. I've spoken to friends that have been, and they just rave about it. There is a Frozen ride in there, which basically looks like our Frozen ride, but if they dumped a ton of money onto it, and the special effects look incredible. There's a Peter Pan ride, which kind of looks like a Transformers or Spider-Man type ride at Universal, but with Peter Pan. There's a kids ride with Tinkerbell, and then there's also another boat ride with Rapunzel, as well as the hotel, shops. There's just so many things going on. So Tokyo Disney, a big one was Fantasy Springs. Also, they announced some stuff for next year, so we'll be talking about them more later on. But I got to go and ride Space Mountain though before it closed, because over there they're just not renovating their Space Mountain. They're knocking it down and building a new one behind it because they just do everything bigger and better. It was pretty great. I have to say I was very impressed by Tokyo Disney in general, and definitely on my list to go back one day. My other park in Japan that I got to go visit was Universal Studios Japan. Now, I was really just there for Jaws, not going to lie. Everything about that park was amazing. It felt like the park here. It had some differences. It had Super Nintendo World, which was neat to go see. It had a water world, so it was like, oh, okay, there's like a little bit of everything. And then in Nintendo World, it was supposed to be opening. However, it didn't open till the end of the year, was the Donkey Kong Country, because they had some technical issues with it. So I could see it from a distance. I didn't get to ride it because it opened where it was scheduled to open after I left. However, that was like their big addition out there to have Donkey Kong Country open with the new Donkey Kong Minecart Madness ride, which will be opening here at Orlando next year at Epic Universe. However, I did get to do the Mario Kart ride. Unfortunately, I was not very impressed by it. Mixed reactions. I'm sure some people love it. However, for me alone, I would say it was not my favorite and not at the top of my list. Now we'll flip over to the other continent, or to another continent, over to Europe. Let's go to Paris first. Disneyland Paris. A lot of new stuff there this year and a lot of new announcements. So Disneyland Paris has been doing a lot of stuff with drones and kind of seemed to be leading the theme parks really with what they could do with drones. Disney World did do a drone show this summer. However, after seeing the one in Disneyland Paris, I was like, oh, this is nothing compared to what they do. So they did the Main Street Electrical Parade in the sky. Not the first year that they've done that one. Last year they did the 30th anniversary, but they've added so much to it. So they have drones with sparklers on it, and they had drones that shoot fire, and they have all these different effects on their drones that you're like, did they really just do that? So the Main Street Electrical Parade in the sky, they also did a holiday overlay and a Halloween overlay. So really kind of taking a different route. The cool thing is, or I guess the thing is, they can't really do as many fireworks there because they have residential areas close by, similar to Disneyland. So it's interesting that they went this route. And I do wonder if we'll see some of that coming to California, because almost every time I've been there, fireworks have been canceled for winds. So I wonder if this will be something in the future. Also out there, they opened up their new Disneyland Hotel. So when I was there 2 years ago, it was under a giant refurb, and they completely redid the hotel. You can't go in. It's very strict unless you have a reservation. Looked at booking there, and it's not cheap. So hopefully the price goes down next year. But the new Disneyland Hotel does look beautiful, and they did a great job on the makeover and a much-needed refurb. I will say, after staying at Sequoia this past year, I'm hoping that one gets love next. Because I looked at it online, and I went, oh, this kind of looks like the Wilderness Lodge. Let's stay there. But I don't think it has been touched since 1992. It was a little dated. But whatever, it did the trick. And then their other big addition they had this year was the Alice in Wonderland. Alice and the Queen of Hearts Return to Wonderland show. This was an interesting one. They announced that this was coming, and everybody went, what the heck is this? And it was very neon, BMX, a lot of like bikes, and it's in the old Lights Motors Action show. So you're like this 5,000 seat giant theater. What is happening? How are we going to fit a show in here? It was pretty cool. All original music. There's BMX riders. There's all these different actors. It's a weird kind of acid trip show, I guess you could say, but it works and it was fun and they did a great job. Now it is in an outdoor theater, so it did close. So hopefully it comes back next year. They also have a lot of big announcements coming to Disneyland Paris. I'm not going to go through them all just because that's for things to come. But next year and the future, let's just say they're changing the name of the second park. So the Studios Park, the Walt Disney Studios, will be changing to Adventure World. They announced a new Lion King Land for an expansion. They already had Frozen Land. Lots of stuff coming over there for that park. So it'll be exciting to report on that down the road. Also, over in the Netherlands, you have the park the Efteling, which is a park older than Disneyland, and it's a beautiful theme park, always has an original score for every single attraction. And they opened up a new ride this year called Dance Macabre, which is a ride system like I've never seen. I'd highly recommend YouTubing it, because once again, the Efteling basically came up with something completely different. And to explain it, it's a giant round room, and it's supposed to be like a haunted ride. And they had a walkthrough that opened up years ago, very old, that you would watch like the show come to life. And this is a spooky kind of building you walk into, and it's a round room, and there's all these different like vehicles in the round room. And then the whole room kind of like pivots and goes like up and down in circles, and your car spins, and I can't even explain it. It's very interesting. But yeah, getting great reviews, looks very different. They just come up with very interesting new things, and hopefully they keep doing that because it's something that you just look forward to with the Efteling. And if you don't know much about the Efteling, look it up. It's pretty cool. We'll go stateside right now with some parks and some smaller announcements. I would go over to Busch Gardens, Williamsburg. To me, one of my favorite parks in the world. It used to always get voted as the most beautiful park. I think Dollywood has been taking that one. I'll still give it to Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, because I still think it's beautiful. They redid the Loch Ness Monster, and I'm so glad this ride got love. The Loch Ness Monster, I remember riding this ride when I was little, and even then it was considered old. And it is a looping coaster that intertwines the loops, so the loops go in between each other. Like it's cool, but it's an older ride system. I got to ride it again 3 years ago, and it was definitely showing its age. It's one of them where it's on top of the track, and it just looks like an older roller coaster, but it holds up. And they basically redid the whole thing, retracked it, put all new cars, everything. So instead of ripping it down and rebuilding a new ride, they were able to just refurb it and rebuild it, which you don't see as much anymore, which is really nice. But Loch Ness Monster. And I'm really excited they just announced a new Big Bad Wolf. So for those of you who remember it, the Big Bad Wolf was a roller coaster over at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, and that got replaced by the Verbolten. So the reasoning was it was a suspended roller coaster that would kind of dangle, and you go around all these turns through the German village. However, they had a lot of issues with it mechanically. They couldn't get the parts anymore for it, so the maintenance was just too expensive. So unfortunately, they had to close it. Not because the fans didn't like it, they loved it. And they built a new ride, Verbolten, which is very Hagrid-esque. Hagrid is very similar to that, and Verbolten actually came first. So now, where the roller coaster Dragonfire was years ago, they're building a new version of the Big Bad Wolf, which is hopefully going to be similar, but a little more modern. So very curious to see what happens with that one. That's a seasonal park, so it'll be closed now and hopefully reopen in the spring with that ride. Over at Cedar Point, I don't know why I said it like that, Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio, good news, bad news. Top Thrill 2 opened. Bad news, 8 days later, it closed. Still having a lot of mechanical issues with that one. So hopefully next season they could work the kinks out and get it going because it looks fantastic. I remember riding it when it was just regular Top Thrill and they had so many issues with it. Kind of reminded you of a King Dakar, which speaking of King Dakar at New Jersey, that's at Six Flags Great Adventure, New Jersey, did close this season officially after being open for many, many years. So no word on what's happening with that one. But King Dakar was a kind of game changer roller coaster. But those kind of rides are really tough because they are very expensive to operate and they definitely take a beating with how much they do. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with King Dakar, what happens with Top Thrill 2. Maybe we'll get a Top Thrill 3. Over in Dollywood, they did replace their lift of their wooden roller coaster that has the launch, their lightning rod. So they replaced the whole lift. It used to launch you uphill on a wooden roller coaster, but did a lot of damage. So I think that's really the problem with a lot of these new rides. Obviously, it's great to get something new and innovative and different, but unfortunately, nobody else has really tested it out, and you don't know until you build it and you're running it nonstop. These rides are basically going for 12 hours a day, all season long, and at some places all year long without a refurb, and then they start to wear and tear. So kind of interesting to see that, but I'm glad that one was able to be saved. That was a great coaster as well. Let's do a little more Disney, and we'll go over to Disneyland in California. So they did the summer Pixar Fest. They even had a new parade called Better Together. And on top of it, they opened up their new Pixar Hotel, which is their old Paradise Pier Hotel. So if you don't know the backstory of this hotel, this is a hotel that's basically, it's considered on property because they don't have a lot of space at Disneyland, that they acquired. They transformed it, and now they transformed it again into a Pixar one, which to me, I don't know why we don't have a Pixar hotel here at Disney World. I think that would do very well. But this Pixar hotel also has meet and greets with Bing Bong. So that's pretty cool. However, looking at it online, I went to price it out of curiosity to go out there, and it is expensive. So for being a hotel that's not in the parks or close to it or a deluxe, you're paying for it because it's a new hotel. But it seems that that's what they do, like the Disneyland Hotel in Paris. You're just paying for the newness, if that's a word, the newness of it. Speaking of newness, there's another Disney cruise ship that did come out this year. So it seems like almost every year we'll be getting a new one. And this year is the Disney Treasure that came out. So just recently, the Disney Treasure started setting sail from Florida, down here in Port Canaveral. If you ever go to book a cruise in Florida, it'll say Orlando, and you'll be like, oh, there's a port in Orlando? No, we're in the center of the state. But a lot of cruise lines like to say Orlando, since we're about an hour away from the cruise port, maybe a little longer. So it's kind of like a day trip. I don't recommend if you're only in port for a day to come to Orlando, because it's going to take you over an hour to get each way, and then what are you really going to do? But it's nice to have this cruise ship so close. Another cruise ship that we have really close is the new Royal Caribbean ship that opened this year. So Royal Caribbean, I will say, takes the cake as my number one cruise line, and the Utopia of the Seas opened, and I got to go on it. So Utopia is a gigantic ship. It's not the largest in their fleet. That's going to be going to the Star of their Seas, just went to the Icon. But the Utopia is in the class right below it. However, it is massive. There's over 7,000 guests on board at any time. It's a double wide. We are parked in port next to another ship, and you could just see the size of it. It was huge. Beautiful ship. Just a lot of people on it at once. But the nice part is it does do weekend trips out of Orlando, at least at the moment, and does take you to Coco Cay, their private island. But now I could say that I've been on a lot of cruise lines. I've done Princess, but that was in college, so I don't really remember it. Not because I was drinking. I actually wasn't, because I couldn't afford it. But that was like an older crowd. But apparently they rebranded. Royal, done a few Royals. Love it. Disney, a little more expensive than everything else. A lot of kids. Celebrity, nice, but a little quieter. I like things to do and activities. And Norwegian, which I would say has the best food by far. So there's something for everyone on each cruise line. I just haven't done MSC or Carnival, and I don't think I'm going to, and that's okay. Well, let's end it rounding out with all the Orlando theme parks and some of the new stuff that came here to Orlando. Over at SeaWorld, they did open another coaster, which somehow they keep fitting them in and squeezing them, but they got this one going. So they have a Penguin Trek, which opened. It's a family coaster. And the cool thing about this one, it starts with a little bit of a show scene inside the building. So this is housed in their old Antarctica ride. So their Antarctica ride never opened after COVID. If you ever got to go on it, it was this crazy backstory and this music, and you went in this great show building, and you got on this like hockey puck that like basically soared across the ground, and then the ride started, and the ride was terrible. So it was very interesting that they spent all this money on the old ride, and then it just wasn't that good. I called it a hockey puck through Costco because that's kind of what it looked like. So unfortunately, or fortunately, it never reopened after COVID, but they did finally dump some money into it and made it into a roller coaster inside. So it's a family roller coaster about penguins, or at least trying to be about penguins. And at the end does have the penguin exhibit, which is what we're all there for, to see the penguins. Plus, it's an icy exhibit, so when you go inside, it's nice and cool in there. But yeah, another new roller coaster for SeaWorld Orlando. Over at Universal, a little light this year, but we kind of expected it and have been expecting it just because we know all the money is going towards their new theme park, and they have 3 hotels. So they have a lot being built right there. Even over in Hollywood, they're building a giant roller coaster on the side of the hill that won't open until 2026, a Fast and the Furious roller coaster, which would be interesting to see what they do with the old Fast and the Furious stuff. But yeah, Universal kind of just gave a facelift to their kids zone, which turned into DreamWorks Land this year. It opened. Not anything really to write home about, not something to plan a trip around, but a worthy update and something we needed. It was Fievel and Barney and Curious George, which definitely love Fievel and definitely will miss that area. But DreamWorks Land definitely feels like a good replacement and what it needed. Well, it doesn't feel like a new land. It kind of feels more of just a facelift to the old land. We got Shrek, we got Trolls, and we got Kung Fu Panda, which it definitely needed some representation in the park. So nice little addition. And at the end of the day, they still kept E.T., and he got a new marquee to his ride. So as long as E.T. is safe, that's all I really care about. It will be interesting after Epic Universe opens. First off, hopefully it does well. And if it does well, that means Universal's going to be making money, and Comcast will start dumping money into the old parks. So it will be interesting if they could start moving ahead with some of their other plans that they have, because rumors point to Pokemon, Zelda, and a lot of other stuff coming over there. So the other parks do need a little bit of love, and hopefully that means they'll start getting it. They also got a new parade that opened this year, the Mega Movie Parade. So their old parade closed a few years ago. Their Superstar Parade. So it was always rumored they were having a new parade coming, and they did, and it didn't disappoint. It opened this summer and will open again next year in April after Mardi Gras, because right now they'll do Christmas and then they'll do Mardi Gras, then they'll reopen it for the spring/summer. But it gives tribute to their old movies and their new movies. So it starts off with the classics like Back to the Future, intertwines things like Sing, Trolls, Minions, Jurassic World, Ghostbusters, Jaws, E.T. with these giant larger-than-life floats. And they spent some money on this, which I was happy to see because we didn't know if we'd get anything else. So Mega Movie Parade and their new nighttime show, the Sensational. It's a good one too, and they use drones. So a lot of great stuff happening at Universal this year, but a lot more even better stuff on the horizon. Now, Disney was also a little bit scarce on some of their openings this year, and it looks like they might be for a while. Country Bears did get a refurb this year. I will say I was skeptical to see like what they were going to do because it was a classic, but I actually really liked the update. Some people probably don't. I did. And then Tiana's Bayou Adventure was a layover or like a reskin of Splash Mountain. So not a new ride, but a new ride to come out. They're also open the exact same ride over in Disneyland also. So not a new ride, but a newer ride, if that makes sense. Didn't add capacity to the park. The good news is they did make a lot of announcements at D23 this year. So hopefully some of those will start coming up soon and we won't just start seeing construction for years. Hopefully they actually will start moving. The bad part is they did announce a lot of closures to rides. So similar to how Splash Mountain closed for Tiana's, they are going to be closing a lot of rides, however, changing them. So hopefully we'll get not just a refurb of rides, like they were getting dinosaurs turning into Indiana Jones, but also brand new rides to add some capacity to the park, because that's what the parks really need. What the parks don't need is Lightning Lane. And unfortunately, this year we got paid Lightning Lane, where they start paying per ride, which they have been doing, but they started a premium service where you could pay a lot of money and get them all. So it'll be interesting if it seems like they're going in the direction of Universal, and it'll be interesting if they continue on that path and maybe just get rid of the cheaper option where you could pay and book your times and just pay a lot of money for a few people, because it seems to be working for Universal. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that direction. And last but not least for Disney, they did open the new Polynesian Tower, which is just called the Polynesian Tower, which is a DVC tower that looks over the Magic Kingdom at the Polynesian Resort. So yeah, as I said, as I started to put together this list, it really started to come together. And it doesn't sound like a lot on paper, and then when you read it, you're like, oh, a good amount happened in the theme park world. Hopefully you got to experience some of the things, and we'll get to experience more, and it looks like more is even coming on the horizon. So hopefully I will see you at the parks.
Thanks for taking a ride with Average Joe Orlando.
You made it!
I knew you would. Is everyone okay? Hope you still want to open an account.
Say cheese! See you later!
Thanks, everybody! You were brilliant!
At this time, gather up your personal belongings and take your small grubs by their grubby little hands as you exit. Thank you.